Welcome to That Conversation by Vaya Kochi. Today we're going to have a chat with Apsara Reddy. A journalist and politician, Apsara Reddy is one of the few transgender women to be making a name for themselves in the Indian political scenario. Appointed as the National General Secretary of All India Mahila Congress, she has been working relentlessly for the equality of the sexes.
Thank you so much for having me on Vaya Kochi. Kerala is a place which has given me so much of love, kindness, and the ability to come into my own. We've been under complete lockdown. I've been completely hassled in Chennai because we're doing a lot of relief work, and I've just run back from one of the works that I was doing. So a little bit of a bad hair day for me, but I had to do this with you.
Thank you so much. To start the interview, could you just tell me a bit about yourself and what you do?
So basically, I'm a trained journalist. I worked for organizations like the BBC, the Hindu, Indian Express, the Deccan Chronicle, and also I have launched and successfully run my own magazines. And before moving on successfully to politics, I was invited by Madam Jayalalitha, her party, as a national spokesperson. After her demise, I went on and made a documentary on prisoners in South India in a prison called Pural Prison, which has over 1 million views now. Unmaking of a monster on YouTube. And after that, after Jayalalitha Madam's demise and after this documentary, I think Congress Party, found my work interesting and invited me to be the National General Secretary for the Mahila wing of the Mahila Congress, rather. And I've since then represented the party as a National General Secretary of the Mahila Congress, traveling to every state, trying to build women cadre and do work that's gender just.
So now when you're working with the Congress, you're in a position, where you can bring about change, where you can actually influence change. What are your main areas of focus?
So my main areas of focus are basically gender justice, men, women, or transgender women or trans persons, to kind of find them opportunities in political platforms so that they can enter political mainstream. I ensure that we have as many youngsters between the age of 18 to 35 entering the block, district, national, and state levels of politics by training, by giving them workshops on legality, taxation, making them understand government policy and how it affects their life. So basically, we work closely with women across sections, and also to find a synergy between how men, women, and trans persons interact and find a synergy to work together.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have worked, and I believe you've also studied abroad.
So basically, I did my bachelor's in investigative journalism and marketing from Australia. And I have done my master's in developmental economics and broadcasting from London. So I studied abroad, worked with the BBC World Service abroad. I worked with the Commonwealth Secretariat as the Communication Public Affairs Officer, and then eventually moved to India.
So having worked and lived abroad and in India, what are the stark differences that you feel in society's attitude towards the LGBTQ community?
I think abroad, the sights and sounds of LGBT people are a lot more. I think people are more receptive towards LGBT individuals. In India, I think it's almost, there's still a lot of taboo around, especially trans persons. I think people still think, people ask me, are you a makeup artist, or do you dance at bars, or do you dance at weddings? And I think to break that stereotype is very difficult. I think it's very important to be honest and be courageous. At the same time, look for mainstreaming. I always tell my transgender sisters that the world is changing. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Try and get yourself an education. Try and get yourself a job. Try and have open, meaningful conversations with people. Don't succumb to what the society wants you to be. I think there's a bigger canvas out there, and I think you need to be bold enough. Changing into a woman is such a bold thing. After you do change to a woman, don't settle for anything less. Only work towards respect and dignity.
True. That's a really important way to look at it. Just going back into your history a little bit, I read that you grew up in a very conservative family in Chennai. So how did this, obviously the process of self-discovery would not have been very easy for you. Where did you get support from, and what helped you change?
It was very hard for me, because very young in my life, I realized I was different. I was attracted to the same sex. I wanted to be very feminine. My mannerisms, everything was very feminine. People in India always tell you you're homosexual, you're gay when your boy wants to be feminine. I wasn't gay. I respect gay men and all of that, but I wasn't gay. I wasn't in so many ways without having to explain it. I felt like a woman in every way. So it was very difficult to convince my parents. There were a lot of emotional battles at home. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of relatives and people who said harsh, cruel, baseless things. But then I realized that I wasn't violating anybody's space. I was just trying to be who I wanted to be. And I convinced my mother that I needed her support. I needed her to understand me on this journey. I was going to be the same articulate, intelligent, sensible, responsible child that they had. And I wasn't changing in any other shape or form. It was just the person that I wanted to be in terms of my gender. So she supported me. She was my superhero. Of course, people have so many opinions about you. People want to second guess your intentions. People want to attach meaning to everything that you do. It was very difficult because I was just 15 years old. But then I succeeded, and here I am.
So yeah, my thought was, at 15, you're like a teenager, and there's already, so much of not peer pressure and a lot of things. So how, what gave you the courage to go forward?
I knew nothing else to be to me. For me, it was this is who I was, and this is who I wanted to be, and I knew nothing else to be.
Okay. Okay. And how long did you take to transition, and when did you feel that your transition was complete?
So I started my hormones at the age of 15 and a half, 16 years old. In 5 years, I did my hormones, and then I went in for my gender reassignment surgery.
Now, a question, a little bit of a legal question. Now that the Section 377 has been repealed and there's possibly more acceptance of the LGBTQ community, what are the changes that you've seen after this judgment has come about?
Um, I don't see much change at all. I feel people's societal attitudes still have to change a lot more. There has to be more visibility of trans people and LGBT people across politics, media, art, culture, in mainstream roles. And you can't have trans people, just as animated characters in television shows and films, and being made fun of or being just humorous attachments. We need to have mainstreaming across spheres. What also needs to change is that people have to understand the difference between transgender, gay, bisexual, lesbian, and all these various spectrum because people confuse everything. There's also a great amount of awareness that's needed among the government department, whether it's passport control, whether it's gazetted officers, whether it's legal. I think there needs to be a lot more sensitivity and awareness in how they deal with LGBT individuals because sometimes because of their prejudice and because of the lack of knowledge, we get the wrong end of the stick, so to speak, at airports, at offices. So I think that needs to change.
True. You spoke about mainstreaming. See, a lot of these biases, I believe, starts at a very young age. It starts with what you see around you. How do you think? How do you think these changes can actually be brought about?
I think parents should make a conscious effort to be very sensitive in raising their kids to be uh, accepting of diversity. I think gender diversity is very important as a lesson when you're growing up. I think parents and families and schools should engage more proactively and sensitively and sensibly with children when it comes to gender diversity and making them familiar with different sights and sounds. And I think to teach them mutual respect, even if somebody is different from you, even if somebody is not what you know is right, or what is not right for you might be right for somebody else. I think gender diversity and respecting diversity should be taught at a very young age.
Do you think that if this is part of curriculum in schools, like gender studies or this kind of non-discrimination, would that help in any way?
I think schools, of course, have a major part to play in making students and children better individuals. But I think parents have a huge responsibility of teaching their kids to behave and to accept and to live harmoniously with different sections of society.
The problem there might be that many of these parents themselves might not be very well aware of
Yeah, so that has to, I
reality.
think, with time. I think even transgender individuals and LGBT individuals, rather than just focus on the gay pride. We need to be more visible in other forums. We need to, be at schools, colleges, make this a talking point, make this a conversation point, try and engage with people and educate them and inform them, because I feel sometimes um, we also just leave it to larger public displays like gay pride or all of these kind of festivals. But I think those are just very limited and make for great headlines and colorful wigs. But we need to do more on a daily basis.
Now that you're in politics, do you think that you can help bring about a fundamental change in the way policies are framed and things are done?
I have always strongly objected to stereotyping or basically straitjacketing LGBT communities. Even the transgender bill, I had a huge problem with, because I think NALSA judgment gives you the right to self-identify, but the transgender bill that's being brought in by the BJP government asks you to go in front of a medical committee to examine if you're good enough to be a man or woman, or a transgender man or a trans woman, which I think is against our fundamental rights, which is against a Supreme Court judgment. Also, the fact that they say, you cannot beg on the streets. People beg out of hunger. People don't beg out of choice. Unless you make provisions for housing, when people are thrown out of their home, where else will they live? If people don't have education, if there's no reservation education, how will they get job opportunities? And when they want to transition from a boy to a girl or a girl to a boy, trans woman or a trans man, it is a medical process. And if you don't give them medical subsidies, like you would any other person in the government hospital for other ailments or other disease or other infections or other treatments, how then will they look convincing to escape bullying and discrimination and harassment? I think medical subsidies, housing reservations, and educational reservations are very important. Also, I feel when you ask the transgender community to accept a bill where basically it says if you rape a transgender woman, the punishment is only about 6 months. But if you rape a woman, the punishment is 7 years. I think that's grossly unjust, because we're also human beings. We're susceptible to rape. We're susceptible to sexual violence. We have lesser support systems. So all this are changes I want to bring about.
Excellent. What would be your message to young people out there who are struggling through various identity phases in their lives?
I always tell people that if I can do it, so can you. I don't have a godfather. I grew up in very tough here. I come from a very conservative South Indian family. I I believed I could make a difference. I believed I was doing the right thing. I believed that if you pursue the truth with courage, you can always get to your goal easier. So just follow your dreams. Don't succumb to pressure. Don't fall for small talk.
All right. Thank you so much, Apsara. I mean, this has been very enlightening. If there's anything more that you'd like to
Thank
talk
you,
about
Sumi.
next,
I have to apologize for the way I look. I just rushed from somewhere and my hair is all a mess, and I'm still like, I look like I'm just caught in a hurricane, but I had to
no,
do this.
that's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. God bless you and happy Pride.